This is a short tutorial on the Opaque Component General tab in WUFI Passive. So when you're in WUFI Passive and you've imported geometry, you'll see that all your geometry shows up as little icons over here. We're going to be talking through just the Opaque Components General tab. So the opaque components are the ones with the yellow and the red line where the thermal boundary is shown. Yellow condition in space and red line is the thermal boundary. So this is a roof, a wall, a floor. You can see that by the red line here. So when I click on each of these components, not only are they outlined in my 3D geometry down here, but also I get a fair amount of information about them on the General tab. The first thing I see is something that looks very similar to how you would have set your building up in SketchUp. So these are the different properties. This is opaque. I can also change this here. So if something was wrong in SketchUp or you would like to adjust something, you can change it here. So I see opaque as the type. I can define what zone is on the inner side and outer side. Remember that you know the inner side is where this little green arrow starts and stops. You see this green arrow? Inner side is where the arrow starts. Outer side is where the arrow ends. So I can see that I assign zone 1 on the interior and outer air on the exterior. And that's correct for this particular assembly. But again, if you had this backwards or something in WUFI Passive or in SketchUp, you can reverse, change the orientation, or you can change your SketchUp geometry and re-import. Okay, so next you'll see the area of that component. So this can be helpful in other entries. You'll see the inclination. So this is a flat roof here, so it's just at 0. The orientation, horizontal, for this particular roof. If I was looking at a wall, actually we'll jump down there in a second. And then you'll see the perimeter of this roof. So that's just general geometry data that was pulled in. Other parameters here, you can get an overview of the surface film coefficients, which is a different tutorial if you're interested in changing those. It's up in the surface tab. You can see the total R value here. You see it without framing, the homogeneous R value, and then you can see the R value with the framing. In this particular case, there's not a lot of framing here. So it's only, the effective R value is relatively close to the R value without the framing. So this is the effective R value, 90. And then the U value, which is just the inverse of that. You'll notice as I click on another component like exterior walls where they're all grouped, the red is the selected component and then the yellow are everything else that's in that group. So then when I'm looking at my different entries here on the area or the different geometry, it shows the area of the selected component on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side it shows the area of all the components. And then additionally we see inclination of 90 for walls, but additionally it shows kind of the spread per orientation in terms of total percent on each wall, or total percent of the area or total percent of the orientation here. So it's pretty evenly split here. And this is obviously it's subtracting windows, so it's just wall areas. So you can see the south wall you would think would be more than, it would be similar to the north wall, right? South wall 24%, north wall 30%, and that's because the north wall simply has more wall area and less windows than the south wall here. Similar parameters for the U value. There is one option when you're in components that are at 90 degrees, so doors and walls. If you have an exterior door that's opaque, you will include it as opaque, and you can select exterior door down here. The only thing this does is separates this component in your results report as an exterior door rather than grouping those results with your walls.